Hello, everyone. Welcome back to BioNexus Health presents Autism Uprooted podcast series. Today, we'll be speaking to a unique and dedicated couple, absolutely amazing parents of triplets. And Dad makes it a point to attend every single appointment. They both make it a point to attend all appointments together. An amazing team that have achieved fantastic results for their boys. I would like to welcome Kate and Rob to today's podcast.
Welcome to the BioNexus Health podcast with Dr. Jodie A. Darshaw, who holds a PhD in integrative medicine, is board certified in integrative pediatrics, an internationally recognized pioneering clinician, and author. And now here's your host of BioNexus Health podcast, Dr. Jodie A. Darshaw.
I would like to welcome Kate and Rob to today's podcast. Hey guys, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for being here on a weekend. I, appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, glad to be here.
The podcast goes to 89 countries, more than 89 countries around the world. I see clients in more than 89 countries, and it'll be very inspirational and helpful to other parents watching. So I'm glad you guys made it.
Sure.
All right. So now you are parents of triplets.
Yeah.
And additional children, right?
Yes. Yeah. Triplets in the middle.
Okay. Now, so could you walk me through, begin at the beginning with, because I only see two boys.
Right.
Not all three from the triplets. One is neurotypical.
Mm-hmm. They were born 29 weeks, 5 days. 90th percentile for their week. They were all almost exactly 3.5 pounds, so all even. They were followed through Northwestern, everything normal. No issues noted. Feeder growers is what they called them. They came home within 6 to 8 weeks, still preemies. Everything still normal. And they always say, don't compare kids, but it was good to have a comparison because we knew when they were about 1.5 years, something was not quite right with 2 of them, and it happened pretty drastically. They had an autism diagnosis by maybe 2.5, and we put them in ABA therapy, and they were there a little over 1 year, and then we had several therapists come up independently and just said, they're not autistic, right? And I said, I keep hearing this, so can you tell me more? And, they really couldn't say too much, but at the same time, they wanted us to know. And it was like 3 or 4 therapists independently. So I kind of took that as a sign. And we started seeing some biomedical doctors here who described a vaccine injury. And we went back and looked in charts and at old videos. And we could see within 6 weeks of those videos and a specific doctor appointment, Grant would be in his crib for 5 to 20 minutes, just lightly banging his head on the crib. And Andrew would just throw tantrums on the floor. And, some people would say, oh, that's just behavioral. And I'm like, no, not really. When some kid is smashing their head on the floor, that's not behavioral. It's a problem. So we did take them out of the regular ABA therapy and just kind of started healing them from the inside out. And I would say one of them is definitely near a recovery. And the other, he's got a ways to go still, but he's making progress.
So you feel, or you actually saw some side effects because of jabs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. within 6 weeks, loss of speech, loss of eye contact, um, funny walking. Yeah, it was all together. And actually, a family member mentioned, do you think this one's autistic? And, it's, I guess I didn't have any experience with autism really. Didn't really know what that meant. And so I just kind of went with it, until people started saying, no, they're not. And yeah, then we kind of looked back, but it was one set where I do recall that pediatrician saying, you know what, do you want to just catch them up? And I was like, sure, why not?
Right.
Yeah, so they did have 5 at that appointment.
Right. Yeah. So they had 5 treatments in one appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually it wasn't
Yeah, I've heard that.
it wasn't all a shock because the third triplet did experience something after his 9 month, but I didn't really think about it until later, where he did have a high fever, about 104, but I had our other daughter is 16 months older. So I had like literally 4 babies, and I didn't want to take him to the ER by myself. I had no one else there. And his fever did come down within a couple hours, like at 102. So, but he did have a reaction, but he fought that.
He was able to get
Mhm.
past that and fight
Yeah.
that. Okay. So what made you decide to go for BioNexus and herbal therapy?
I want to say we've tried a lot of things over the years. I think I heard about you on a Facebook chat room. I think is where I found your name, and then I researched it. My memory is not as good as Kate's on all this stuff, but I want to say that's how it happened. And you had great reviews, and we're like all the other parents that are listening to this. You'll try anything. We've done, you name it, we've been there and done it. So that's how we, found you and got set up and started moving. And we've been to other doctors before. I'll tell you the thing I like about what you do is you take the tests, which are outside of, because parents are very vulnerable with this. They believe anything anyone says, but when we talk to you and you show us these tests that are done by a third party testing company, and you see your kids improve, whatever, month to month between the meetings or the appointments, and then you say, look at how his gut bacteria got better, and you're seeing the progress, but you're also seeing it on paper of why they're getting better. So, and like we've had some flare ups, and we've seen some of the behaviors and things kind of regress a little bit, but now they're starting to get better again. Mm-hmm. So, at least you have some, I'm not a doctor. I don't know all the stuff, but I can follow the graphs when you screenshot back and forth and you say, wow, look how bad it was. And, look at it's amazing that it's this low now or this much better. So yeah, it's been great. And we've seen great gains with both boys. I mean, no one's ever the same, but they are both making progress every day. So that's all you can hope for.
Yes, thank you, Rob, for the kind words. Doing lab tests and connecting the dots between various lab tests, and like you mentioned, third-party lab tests, and seeing progress, once again, connecting the dots when we repeat the test and seeing the change, the physiological and biochemical changes that are induced by various triggers. We mentioned about the jibber jabber, but there are many ingredients in them that can be triggers for PANS, PANDAS, right? Tick-borne infections, Lyme disease, biotoxin illness, mold exposure. So environmental toxins were acquired. We saw those in the labs, and both boys are, like you mentioned, again, individuals, and they had their own individualized lab results, their own protocols, and they've come quite a long way. Can you speak a little bit about the improvements you've seen, where they are today?
I mean, and like Grant, I mean, he didn't talk till I think his 5th birthday. Like he didn't really,
he
or
did
Christmas.
ABCs by like 4, but he has the anxiety. We had a very good chiropractor who described it, fight and flight. He said, Andrew is a fight. He's a fighter. He's going to stick it out. He's going to try. He's a perfectionist. Grant is a flight. Like if he doesn't think he can do it, he's not even going to try. So he used to go like behind our trees and start talking. So, but that's where he did like his ABCs. But he had an anxiety around us. So I think he had it in him, but couldn't get it out. But he's still, yeah. So I would say like 4-ish, maybe he started talking around us like 5.
And now he's repeating anything you say to him, he can repeat. He says his own words. He can sing happy birthday, which to most people that are living with this, I mean, that's progress, right? You're seeing results. I mean, Grant used to only want to watch cartoons. Now he plays video games. I mean, and he can play video games and get to new levels and he's playing the same video games I played as a kid. And he's like, I'm like, man, I didn't even know that. And, he had, I don't know what the terms are, but his fingers weren't as strong as Andrew's with writing and stuff. And when he first started 6 months ago, he couldn't even push the buttons. And now he's getting to multiple levels into a game by himself.
He definitely had like the lead poisoning, like the drippy wrists and everything. And he still has some difficulties writing. But, I also used to take offense when people called him lazy. And now what I can see that he does, I'm like, you know what, Grant, you are kind of being lazy. You can play this Nintendo. Granted, it's only like, half an hour a day. It's not a lot, but it's something that's very normal that his brothers would do. And he can push it. And I'm like, you know what? You can write. So sometimes you just have to push him a little bit because he is a master manipulator. He is smart, but he doesn't want to do it. But we're going to make him do it.
I like that approach. Absolutely.
Yeah. He can't be lazy. No.
Yeah. You have to dig deep for the motivating factors sometimes.
And, yes, for the motivating. And because he does have that anxiety where he doesn't want to try it because he's going to fail. Well, you know what? If you try it, I think he's finding that he's succeeding more and more.
That's something important. You just reminded me of Brian a little while back. He did an interview, and this was something, he revealed to this autism reporter, right, journalist, that I heard for the first time in, I think Brian was 16 when he was interviewed by this autism reporter, right? So it turns out that initially I saw that he had acquired 2,000 words, but he found it hard and he refused to make phrases. His words would come out wrong sometimes, and it was very interesting. Like the kids are so smart. The ones who are damaged by treatments are really smart, and it's interesting that he mentioned that he knew what he was saying sounded weird. So he just didn't attempt it. He stopped talking.
Yeah.
Until he practiced. And then from there, he went to echolalia. He would watch TV shows. I remember, what was that? Zach and Cody, Little Bear. He would watch those shows and he would have a lot of echolalia.
Yeah.
And then he started using that echolalia appropriately. So he would use that sing-song voice, and then he would answer my questions appropriately. And slowly, I actually started to hear his voice. Now, during this interview, this was the first time I actually, heard him give us the reason why, in spite of so many words, we had speech therapists scratching their head, like, what is going on? He's got these words, but he's not stringing them into phrases, even though he can. So yeah.
I think that is kind of where Grant is. He's got the echolalia from some shows and he's using it correctly. And he has a new speech therapist as of like the last month. And I think she is good. She's really kind of opening up more ideas as to why he's doing this. And she's using the Gestalt language and said he's like in 1, but she needs to move him to 2. And she said he's kind of getting there, but she needs to move into 2, even to get further in academic. She said the language is actually holding him back currently. So yeah, he will answer, and sometimes he'll repeat the last phrases you say, or questions are very difficult for him. And this was true of Andrew also till about 2 years ago. Andrew would, if I said, do you want this? Yes or no? And he would just say no, or whatever the last thing was you said. No. Do you want an apple or banana? Banana, just because I said banana last. And so now with Grant, when I say, do you want this? Yes or no? And he'll say yes and no. And I'm like, okay. You can't really get an answer. So I think the questions are harder for him. But you know, Andrew kind of it was kind of a switch that flipped, and he understood it. So ironically, Andrew, I think, had the worst issues when they were like 2, 3 years old. And now it has kind of flipped. So we always kind of wait for like Grant to make a huge progress, because Andrew's had several. And I think even just recently we talked to you about him being a little more hyper. And that has really calmed down in the last 2 weeks. And his vocabulary, his speech, his conversation, he's 100% conversational. And he sits in the front with me now.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. Well, Andrew is 100% conversational.
Yeah.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for
If he comes up, I'll stop him. He's downstairs playing, but he sits in the front seat with me because we have 4 school drop-offs, and he'll just start talking about something outside, and you know, it's something outside of himself.
Spontaneously, like, you know.
Yeah, he'll even ask because I might have like some, you know, movie on in the car for his little sister. She's 4. And he'll be like, Mom, can I have your phone, please? I want to play, whatever.
Oh my goodness.
And he knows to be, everyone has said, oh, he's so polite, and he is. Everything's please, thank you. Yeah, he's spontaneous.
That is so good to hear. Now, Rob, you mentioned something to me a couple appointments back about going on a fishing trip. Was that Andrew?
Yeah. So Andrew and Grant, they like to go fishing with us. They have both been deer hunting with us before, which, you know, sitting quietly in a blind. You know, we try to, you know, Andrew played on our soccer team last year. You know, we try to get him involved in everything that Charlie or any of the other kids do. We don't, you know, try to keep them from it. It's a challenge sometimes, but here he is.
Say hi to Dr. DeShore. Hi, Dr. DeShore.
Hey, Andrew. Good to see you again. How are you?
Plush collection.
You want to play
Oh,
what?
really?
Mario Plus collection.
Mario Plush collection. Crazy Mario Brothers.
Crazy
You wanna
Mario
play
Brothers.
The Mario Brothers.
They're in the
Sorry,
Mario
don't
Brothers
do
right
it.
now.
20 free.
Do you want to leave now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see you later.
Bye.
All right. Bye, honey bunny. See you later. Oh, he's so cute. I can't get over it.
Yeah.
Oh
He
my
moves
goodness.
fast, and he is he's at a therapeutic school. We are, I think, ready to move him to something where he can have a little more academics, because he's doing like double-digit addition subtraction right now. Andrew, go close the door. And they're starting multiplication. So he can definitely use the academics. He's a very smart kid. But you know, we had to work on the behavioral. So that is really coming together. He still needs to slow. As you can see, like, he's 100 miles an hour. He's not always like that. If he's sitting in the front seat, he's very calm. He can be very calm, but he still goes 100 miles an hour, and he likes Legos and puzzles, which causes his brain to go 100 miles an hour, but he has to slow down. So the calming, we still need a little calming, but the speech is great.
Yes. He's been on the BioNexus speech protocol for a few months now.
I think over a year.
No, the speech.
No?
blend,
Oh, the speech
blend
yeah.
itself.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, over a year, but
Yeah.
that was a few months back.
I'm thinking maybe like 6 months or so.
Okay.
Mhm.
And since then, every appointment I'm hearing more and more language, and we're having spontaneous language conversations. My goodness, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm hearing good stuff from most parents, after 2 months on the speech protocol, on the speech blend, and a couple other. So this is great. Rob, you were saying that Andrew and Grant were able to sit quietly during deer hunting.
Yeah, Andrew, I don't have the picture right now, but Andrew and Charlie shot his first deer last year, and Andrew was there with them. And Andrew was, he was looking out of the binoculars, and he saw deer walking by on our farm. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I try to give them every opportunity. Andrew and Grant both like going fishing for multiple reasons, but Andrew likes to reel them in. Grant likes to throw them back in the water. But
Okay.
he always, like this morning, Grant asked me to go fishing. So yeah, we try to get them involved and let them do everything everyone else does.
I think the biggest thing that we had recently, and this was 6 months ago, so I mean, it was before they were even at this level, is we took them on a Disney cruise. And it was the first time the younger four had ever been on a plane. And I always thought, that could even just go horribly wrong. But they were perfect. Some of the therapists were like, well, Grant really likes water. Like, do you think he's going to jump off the ship? And I was like, well, I hope not. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't. So I think he'll be okay.
I to be honest, I had my, I said we can't have a balcony room.
Yeah.
I can't take the chance. You have to outthink the potential.
A balcony room is that would be a little more difficult. But I mean, they were perfect. Like Andrew, especially, as you can see, he's much further along. If you didn't know there was something going on, no one else could tell. He just fit in with everyone else there. He was walking on his own, like 10 feet ahead of us, just taking stuff in. Even the streets I let him down in Jamaica that were really far off course. He just fit in, looking around, taking stuff in. He went to play bongo drums with some people there. Grant, yeah, I mean, they do require supervision 100% of the time, but that doesn't mean that you have to have a hand on them. Just know where they are. And very, very successful vacation. I haven't done anything like that before, but we're planning to again next year. So it went that well.
Yeah.
We couldn't have done that 2 years ago. No way.
Yeah, no, it would have been impossible. The meltdowns. I mean, the thing I liked about going on instead of going like on more of an adult-based cruise versus the kid cruise is if your kid's screaming, don't worry, the kid at the next table is screaming louder.
Right.
That's kind of the way I went into it, and we had no problems anywhere on anything we did. We did excursions. We went in a submarine. I mean, there were no issues.
In a submarine.
Yeah, in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
We went in a small little submarine to look at fish at a reef.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not a single problem.
And we didn't mention, so they're 9. So I know I listen to some of these podcasts and I'm wondering like how old. So they're 9. They'll be 10 in March. So this has been a work in progress since they were about 2.5, but like really where we knew what was wrong since about 4.
Right. Yes. And we found additional things to help them with when we ran the labs, when we started with them. So Kate and Rob, one thing that I vividly remember from your Disney cruise is you mentioned about the diet. There were just basic dietary restrictions. Gluten-free, dairy-free was maintained, but it wasn't like a very strict diet was followed. And you were also taking a break from their protocol while on vacation, sort of a break, right?
It would have been hard to bring all the little bottles with us.
Of course, yes.
I get my cords taken away. I mean, before they're going to take, they would take thousands of dollars of.
I'll tell you, like they custom made desserts for them. One night there was schnitzel, and their grandma makes schnitzel. They love it. It's like chicken tenders. They I had regular gluten, and they made gluten-free for everyone else. They made chocolate cake that looked just like everyone's else. That was gluten and dairy free. I mean, whatever you needed. We did have to order it the night before. We had to choose their menu, but they did a phenomenal
it's
job with the.
Very easy to do. That's definitely a vacation if anyone is thinking about to do it. We had it booked through one of my friends, and she said, there are about like 20% of people have dietary restrictions on Disney cruises. So like our whole family's gluten-free except for Rob, and 3 of them are dairy-free. So it was not a big deal for them at all. Yeah, they took our orders the night before. We waited maybe 20, 30 minutes when we were there because they prepare them in another kitchen and they bring it. No issues. Yes. And when we do like even our beach vacation, I might bring like 1 supplement or 2 supplements for Andrew for calming, but they do take a break from that. And, we don't see any, I think just because they built it up,
Right.
they're okay. And, sometimes I think it's even good for their body to take a little break and then get back on it. And there are no big issues like when we first started, when they were 4 or 5 and you skip something one day, like detrimental effects.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, taking a week off the supplements is good, but doing the diet, we had so many issues, which I'm sure other parents did, with constipation and not wanting to go to the bathroom, like to get to the point where they're potty trained. They tell you when they got to go, to take a chance of eating dairy and gluten and screwing that back up. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And Disney did a great job. And I'll tell you, I would recommend a cruise over going to a theme park because there was no waiting in lines. If you had a problem, you're back in your room in 3 minutes, go down an elevator and you're in your room, calm down, give them an iPad, relax, reset, go back out.
And that might have happened once though.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have an issue. And the constipation, I will say that was when they were like 3, 4 years old and they were like just starting on the diet or something. They haven't had that recently. I mean, they're good. Even Grant was the last one, but I mean, he was potty trained at like 4.5, maybe. Number 2 might have been like 5-ish. But people don't realize, they think, special need, they're getting off the bus. They're like, oh, someone said they have to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, well, then they'll go. I mean, we don't take them anymore. Of all 5 kids, the little one still calls after she goes, but yeah, they're good about that. Andrew was, actually we had both of them, because we have the triplet boy and then my daughter who's a year older. And we would send up to the slides, the ones that go all the way around the boat. We'd send Andrew up with Grace, Grant up with Charlie, and they would take them. They'd go in the double rafts. And, we just saw them going around the boat. I mean, they were totally fine. But, they did have to stand in line there, maybe 5-10 minutes for a raft. They could do it.
But 2 years ago, they couldn't.
2 years ago, they wouldn't have been able to. No.
Yeah. You would have been wanting to get off that ship and fly home, if you even made it on the plane there.
Yeah. And so that was an additional day. Like, we had to fly down there a day early, stay in a hotel, find a place. Finding gluten-free pizza outside of Chicago is not that easy.
I mean, I remember Andrew was pulling his suitcase through the airport, through O'Hare, like, one of the busiest airports in the world, like on spring break, like it was nothing. And then when we flew home, we had a really late flight. I mean, we spent 12 hours at the airport with them, and not a problem.
No problems.
Yeah. So, and, like I said, 2 years ago, before we met you, that wouldn't have been possible.
I think even a year ago, that would have been difficult.
So,
yeah.
You mentioned one important point is that the body can take a break when things have calmed down within.
Yeah.
So I have, which is the reason why I made my travel podcast, which greatly reduces the number of supplements. If you're gone for up to a week, with your child, at a certain point in the protocol. Now that the body, we have addressed most of the triggers, things have calmed down, and you can take that leap. Another thing that the reason why I mentioned food on the cruise ship was because that got me curious. I'm like, you said there was no flare-ups, no PANS flare, no behavioral flares. So we said, I was like, all right, let's see where the gut is. And when the lab tests came back, that's when we saw that, the microbiome of a child labeled as being on the spectrum, it is so rare to see everything within range. And the lab test showed us that the microbiome was within range.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, eating out for a whole week for all meals.
Yeah. And we do eat out quite a bit. I would say maybe like once or twice a week we go out. And maybe there's cross-contamination. I mean, they're not celiac or anything, so it's not, but I mean, they're not eating like a bun, a gluten bun. So there might be cross-contamination, but at this point, we don't see Andrew, if he would when he was like 4 or 5 years old, if he got a taste of something he shouldn't have, he was hyper for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's still like, you go to a birthday party and they have the gluten-free cupcakes and he sees a piece of chocolate cake, you'll see him eating it in the corner. Like,
oh, Rob gets bound to do someone else's birthday party.
Yeah. He's crafty. He'll get what he wants, not that he knows it's gluten-free or not gluten-free, but we do our best to try to monitor it.
Last year they were at the jump park and Rob said he was looking around, he couldn't find Andrew.
I thought I lost him.
Andrew had gone into a birthday party that was there and he asked for a piece of cake.
Oh,
and
they crashed
him.
Yeah.
He totally partied.
And the mom goes, he asked me so nicely, I just gave him a piece of cake. I said, oh, thanks. I said, I thought I lost him. Thought I had to make the call home saying I'm coming home with one less kid.
Oh my gosh.
But, yeah, he just sat down at a birthday party.
So they're getting there. They still need work, but
it's a long road.
We see when you said in your last, and I know we have still a lot more work with Grant, but when you were talking about, you had said something a couple weeks ago when we spoke.
Thank you for joining Master Herbalist Dr. Jody A. Dashaw, Director of the BioNexus Health Clinic and BioNexus Herbals, on the BioNexus Health podcast, where we explore and share information and stories about recovering and healing from chronic and environmental illnesses such as mold biotoxin illness, Lyme disease, autism spectrum disorder, fatigue, Crohn's and colitis, mast cell activation syndrome, PANS, and more. Please help us grow our message by subscribing to our podcast channel and sharing the podcast on your social networks. For more information, visit bionexushealth.com.
Information within this video, audio, or text, collectively known as the podcast, has not been reviewed by the FDA. Nothing within the podcast is intended as or should be construed as medical advice. Information is for general informational and educational purposes only. Consumers of the podcast should consult with their healthcare practitioners for medical recommendations. Seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider. Do not disregard the advice of a healthcare provider based on any information from the podcast. The information within the podcast may contain information concerning dietary supplements or over-the-counter products that are not drugged. Our dietary supplement products are not intended for use as a means to cure, treat, prevent, diagnose, or mitigate any disease or other medical or abnormal condition.